But in me, there was no form of fear. The only thing that was emitting from me was pure, unconditional love. And as I got her breath under control so she could oxygenate her blood at the level that it needed to be oxygenated at, then I sent a huge wave of energy into her and I abstracted this thing. And normally when something like the parasite of this type is removed from a person, it goes flying out. It just like it crosses dimensions. It's almost like black foil sometimes and just shot away. And in this case, it started to, and then it came back toward me. And I just projected this huge bubble around the young lady and around everyone in the area. And it came all the way up, right to my face. And then blasted what appeared to be like shrapnel almost. And like I said, I wish something like that could be caught on camera. Not that I expect anybody out there to believe in any exorcism story or anything like that. That's the only way you can actually find evidence of that is to bear witness to something like that. But for me, what it done that day was that it embedded in me so deeply that wavelength of energy that I'd been seeking for so many years, for 2 decades. And ever since then, when anybody comes on this table or sits in the chair, I have no problem producing that wavelength of energy. It reminds me in a sense of when I used to be in the jungle and looking for tripwires. It seemed like I could see them in the dark. I could see shadows inside of shadows. Shadows are wavelengths as well. Over the years I have I have observed many wavelengths of energy, and we all do it in every part of our day. The difference is I have learned to produce specific wavelengths of energy so that I can give the client what they need. The wavelength that is used continuously now is the wavelength of love, unconditional love. I don't care if the person is 99 years old, if they're 10 years old, if they're middle-aged, if they're sweet, if they're nice, if they're vicious. It makes no difference. The wavelength is the same. The wavelength, or the human body breaks down because we have all these conflicting wavelengths of energy in us. Especially hatred, selfishness, greed, fear. These are all wavelengths. Okay? And all of us produce these wavelengths and feed each other with them. Well, just like it repulses you from another human being, it also repulses the cells themselves from each other. It breaks down communication from one cell to another. The wavelength of love. If you ever observe 2 people who are freshly fallen in love before they get insecure with each other, walk down the sidewalk, I don't care if they look like trolls. Everybody's honking their horn, people are waving at them because that wavelength of love is beautiful and it brings people together. Well, when you can create the wavelength of love truly unconditionally, and you can transmit that into another being, it takes the jaggedness of the wavelength of fear, of insecurity, of greed and selfishness. It evens that out and refocuses it into a nice, smooth wavelength of love. a gentle wavelength. So the cells don't feel opposition. Just like when you walk by somebody that's freshly in love, you're drawn to smile at them. You're drawn to, wow, you guys look great together. Well, the cells do the same thing. When they are endowed with that frequency of love, they communicate with each other. And as they communicate with each other, they link greater and greater bridges from the physical body into the mind, into the consciousness. When you heal one person using this wavelength, you just not only affect that person, because we are continuously broadcasting our wavelengths out to everyone else. You, in its reality as well, then create healing for anyone who is in their environment. That doesn't mean they're going to stop cancer from their neighbor, okay? But they can smoothen out the wavelength enough without attempting to, just by projecting the wavelength which is in them, which is what we're doing unconsciously anyway, which will help diminish the anger, the hatred, the fear in the neighbor. So when you help heal one person using the wavelength of love, in its reality, you're helping remove one person from the wheel of violence, self-deprivation, and fear. You're moving them from that wheel, and they are no longer fueling the wheel of sickness on this planet. So in its reality, you are assisting not just that individual, but you're also assisting the global consciousness, even though in a smaller way. But you still, as you remove one person, that's one person less is in that wheel of violence, even if it's just for a moment.
How do I do that?
I grew up in a very brutal society. Dangerous, scary, scary place I grew up in. Really feeling that wavelength of love was foreign to me. And in my pondering, I realized that I had moments of awe in my life. Like one time sitting by myself and watching a flower unfold as a small kid. And realizing as those pebbles unfolded and watching the veins expand in them, how extraordinary life was, how incredible the creation was, just from the standpoint of that one flower unfolding. It put me in a state of awe. We all have some moment in our life, somewhere in our life, that can give us that sensation of awe, or seeing into the face of a kitten or a puppy dog, or in the face of a child that's just smiling back at you. Little moments like that, if we can focus on them for a moment and let ourselves feel the vibration itself, we can allow our hearts to be branded with that frequency of that moment and become the catalyst for a seed to grow in us. The more moments we have like that, the more we can focus on, the better. But only one is required to set it in motion. And this is one of the things it means with unconditional love. Don't use all of your bad experiences in life so that you can deny yourself a moment of awe or a moment of beauty. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
It's a good beginning point. Okay? It's not the end point, but it is a good beginning point.